day, guys! Today, we are going to discuss a realistic story called Open Boat. This story is based from an actual shipwreck survived by the author himself, Stephen Crane. The way he tugs at our senses and emotions through his use of imagery and making a setting which is possible to happen or have already happened make this story realistic. There are four characters on the story, which the author was able to give a metaphorical representation of members in a community. The captain, being calm and level-headed, represents the leader, which is responsible in guiding its member to reach a goal, which in the story's case, the shore. The cook, which represents the mass or normal people. He have a naive outlook in life and deludes himself with simple pleasantries to forget their situation. The oiler represents the workforce, which most of the time are the one who are lesser than life. The correspondent represents the observer, thinkers, or critics. They question purpose, not just about existence, but everything in general, whether it be politics, religion, or any events. They are the first to think of whys before hows when placed in a not so good situation. These four characters are traveling on a small boat after their ship sank. At the start of the story, it was mentioned that none of them knows the color of the sky. It shows how they can tell which from which, a praise indicating a chaotic mood. The narrator used third person's point of view. He emphasized the correspondent more. Because of all the characters, he seemed to be the one who will have the most perspective. He is not part of the ship's crew, which makes him an actual outsider, and gives him the best trait as an observer. The narrator describes the character's thoughts and emotion using internal monologue.
If I'm going to be drowned, why, in the name of seven mud gods who rule the sea, was I allowed to come this far and contemplate sand and trees? Was I brought here merely to have my nose dragged away as I was about to nibble the sacred cheese of life?
On part 3, all of them made the same remark, which is, funny, they don't see us. This shows that they are somehow getting hopeless. A little while after, the captain made this remark. If we don't all get ashore, I suppose you fellows know where to send news of my finish. They then exchange addresses and admonition. They agreed if someone doesn't make it, it is the survivor's duty to tell the news of their demise. The men faced the dangers of nature and physical and mental exhaustion. Increasing sense of hopelessness was particularly depicted in part 1. It was getting obvious that they are not going to get any help. It was repeatedly mentioned on how the people who were supposed to save them doesn't seem to see them. The feeling of hopelessness grew, even more they thought. They saw people and vehicles that are going to save them only to realize that this was a service bus full of them. The men were able to get ashore by swimming. Although the correspondent thought he was going to die, he survived. The captain and the cook survived while the oiler was unfortunate one. There are two conflicts that I have observed in the story, man against himself and man against nature. All characters are conflicted against exhaustion, both physically, emotionally, and mentally. The captain blamed himself for the loss of the ship and was burdened with guilt because of lives that were lost in the tragedy. The cook shows a hint of hopelessness despite being jolly. The oiler worked double shift before the tragedy and physically exhausted, while the correspondent is the best example of man versus himself. He questioned why he is the situation and unable to overcome his questions about existence. The main conflict is their conflict against nature. They can't do anything against it, and the latter is indifferent of their struggles or even their existence. The name of the oiler Billy was repeated several times in the story to emphasize him being different, as the one being the only one who have the name. I was warned that something different might happen to him. The droning passage is where the thoughts of the crew can be most seen. It was shown how the human's fear of death was increased due to the nature's indifference, while the rowing passage where the correspondent and the oiler show the passage of time. The waves symbolize nature and life. The sea represents ruthlessness and nature's indifference toward human life. And lastly, the shark, which symbolizes wild nature that humbles man into submission. The open boat central themes deals with man versus nature and show the insignificance of human life. This is expressed in the story by the way the characters are pitted in a small boat after surviving a shipwreck. They must face the raging sea and the forces that nature is unleashing upon them. Thanks guys! That's all!